A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to Monday's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Thor Fanndal, the host for today's show. Tonight rather, on the show, we are discussing this headline, which is really in Namibian Sun today, and it's about the Namibian delegation, a very, very powerful Namibian delegation that visited Iceland not long ago in an attempt to see if they can secure the extradition of some Icelandic officials linked or implicated rather in the Fishrot scandal. We know that Erna van der Merwe, the deputy Director General of the ACC, was in Iceland. The Deputy Prime Minister and International Relations Minister Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah was in Iceland, as well as the public prosecutor Martha Imalwa, and the Amnesty International office in Iceland has actually pronounced itself on this issue, saying that the Namibian officials got a cold shoulder from the relevant people in that country. And to discuss with us that situation from Iceland now is Thor Fanndal. He is the Executive Director of Transparency International in Iceland. Thor, thank you for making time for us tonight on the show.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Wonderful. What is your interpretation of this cold shoulder that the Namibian officials? It's a very, very strong delegation from a Namibian perspective. The PG, the Anti-Corruption Commission second in charge, and the Minister of International Relations. And somehow we are told they haven't really gotten to be hosted by the people who mattered who matter in this matter in Iceland.
Well, first of all, we're not really Transparency International in Iceland is not really privy to information of what happened during those meetings. We're not part of the government. My understanding is that they met with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. However, they were not able to meet with the Minister of Justice, but met his political assistant. So I think TI in Iceland and IPPR in Namibia, we sent out a statement when the visit happened, saying that we were happy to see some movement in the case. We think it's important that the two countries strengthen their cooperation. It's fair to say that the Fishrot case is the largest international scandal or corruption scandal that we have faced in Iceland, at least for some time. And the scale in Namibia seems to be similar. But it did surprise us that the Minister of Justice saw no reason to meet the officials. However, there have been some news reports that the delegation, the prosecutor and the ACCR were able to meet the investigators, which is obviously a positive thing. And I would urge people to have some faith in the investigators in Iceland, although we've been quite critical of the executive branch, of the politicians, for their lack of urgency when it comes to anti-corruption in Iceland. We still remain faithful in the quality of the investigators. So the lead investigator in this case in Iceland has a strong track record of seeing cases and follow them through. So as of yet, we urge people to be critical, but trust that they are trying to do their job.
Yeah, wonderful. What is the, I suppose countries ought to have some sort of extradition relationships some established extradition protocols already for anything like that to happen. What do you know about whether Namibia and Iceland have any extradition treaties, or if not, what other avenues are available to sort of see through this process?
So Namibia and Iceland do not have an extradition treaty, not a bilateral one. Both Namibia and Iceland are part of UNCAC, the UN cooperation on anti-corruption. It's been in effect in Iceland for 10 years now, according to a government statement, and I would imagine something similar in Namibia. There is an article in that agreement that stipulates extradition, the possibility of extradition, and also in a case where there is no extradition, the responsibility of each nation to see the case through. However, in this case, it is unclear what the effect of the treaty is in this case, unfortunately, and that's one of the things that we've mentioned publicly, that Iceland has signed it and Namibia, and there isn't really no use in signing these treaties if there's no willingness to make sure that they are valid when they need to be used. However, traditionally, Iceland just does not extradite its citizens. And that's not really to Namibia. We just don't do it in general. It is not seen as something that is doable. But that does not mean that the case can't be in part trialed here. It does mean that there might not be Icelandic laws that can be utilized, but that's a discussion for the two countries. And we have said that it is important for both of the countries that not only Namibians bear responsibility, but we have to see justice in Iceland as well. It's not healthy for our society if we do not do our part.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Thor. Now, Samherji, the Icelandic company that is at the center of these allegations, is it's a very influential entity in the economy of Iceland. But I wonder, politically, how is it viewed? Is it this flagship entity that is protected at almost all cost by the government officials, so much that the justice minister, for example, can decide not to meet the Namibian delegation, might be in part of fulfilling that obligation towards Samherji, or just what demarcations are between government and the company and its officials?
No, I don't know why the justice minister decided not to show up. I don't know what the reasoning is there. Officially, it was scheduling issues, but we've said that we would like this case to have priority, and we think that it should have priority. On Samherji is an extraordinarily large company in Iceland. It is, as you say, it's one of the flagship fishery companies. It is a big company in the fishery industry worldwide. It also has some assets outside of the industry in Iceland. It has financed and invested in media, and is in fish farming, and owns a significant stake in transportation company. So it's a very influential company. There's also quite a public and clear link between particularly the Conservative Party in Iceland. Former fishery minister, the one that was minister when Fishrot broke, he has great ties with them. He's ex-chair of the board. He was a mayor in two small towns that happened to sell Samherji assets owned by the town. He's quite well known for his well, I mean, you could call it service. I mean, he was at least very positive when it came to this company. There's also another story that is has somewhat been reopened due to the Fishrot file. Samherji had a very public and very harsh feud with the Central Bank of Iceland for years, and they spent a lot of energy and influence in undermining the central bank. And I think that signals a little bit, at least, how they see their influence in society. There's a lot of companies that would be hesitant to attack the central bank of their country. So it has a lot of goodwill politically. It's also extremely influential in their region, so up north in Iceland. And we have consistently seen, particularly the political assistant of the justice minister, use every opportunity on social media to belittle the issue and undermine it and kind of joke about it. So one of the things that has been in the news in Iceland and Namibia lately is how he has been speaking of the delegation, and kind of we see it as an attempt to kind of undermine the delegation and signal that actually these people might perhaps not be very qualified to do their job. And that worries us, particularly because we have a culture when it comes to anti-corruption in Iceland that it just is not a priority. It does not seem to hit the radar with the majority coalition. So yeah, highly influential, I would say.
Thor, what do you know about the status of the three officials that are wanted in Namibia, the three Samherji officials that are wanted in Namibia? Are they still employees of the company, or has the company taken a position and say, look, you have brought us into disrepute as an organization, and therefore we are dismissing you, getting rid of you, or suspending you? What do we know of their status in the company?
I mean, the whistleblower obviously does not work for the company. He had resigned before the news broke. But yeah, most of the people involved still work for the company, and I mean, they are owners of the company or high up. There was a period where Samherji claimed that they would investigate the matter and improve. They've kind of changed tone a little bit, but yeah, they still work for the company.
Yeah, and of course, one of the former workers is the whistleblower in this case, and that is Johannes Stefansson, who has repeatedly told Namibian media that he is determined to come to Namibia and testify. And Samherji's attitude towards Johannes Stefansson hasn't been very positive. They have accused him of all sorts of things. Is he by any chance in touch with your organization there in Iceland? Is he talking to you about, I mean, maybe is he safe? What do we know about his status at the moment? Maybe just even his well-being as a whistleblower.
Johannes, as far as we know, is still determined to testify. Yes, we are in contact with him. I mean, part of our role is to be supportive to whistleblowers, and we try to do our utmost on that. So yeah, I mean, I can say that he's in good spirit. He feels great sense of responsibility when it comes to this case, and is still determined. He does not have an official recognition in Iceland as a whistleblower. Unfortunately, the Whistleblower Act doesn't apply to this case, but I know that he has support in the community here. I think he's, for the most part, whenever I've been fortunate enough to be with him, I have seen nothing but support from the community here. And I think something major would have to happen for him not to testify. I mean, he is very determined to do it. He sees it as his responsibility.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about Iceland not into the tradition of extraditing its citizens to other countries, to other jurisdictions. But what can you tell us about Iceland as a country in terms of its stance in corruption matters, on corruption? Its might be ranking globally or in Europe as a corrupt-free society. I'm asking this question to try and establish the attitude that has been adopted by some politicians in Iceland as far as this matter is concerned, because of course there's that solidarity and that patriotism that is our citizens, but wrong is wrong, and any country that takes corruption serious ought to adopt a particular attitude on a matter as serious as this. What can you tell us about corruption in general in Iceland?
So Iceland ranks relatively high on the corruption perception index. It's among the top. However, one of the things that we've noted is that relative to other Nordic countries, we do rank quite low, and the trend has been that we are getting lower and lower every year, and I believe that trend will continue. Culturally, the idea of corruption, because I mean, Iceland is relatively safe. Iceland is a very trusting society, and corruption is not sort of high on the agenda. It's not a high priority for everyone. There's other issues that tend to take the stage. However, after the 2008 credit crunch, the global crunch, which saw the collapse of our banking system, we've had to kind of learn some new truths, and perhaps see that we were a little bit naive when it came to anti-corruption, and the idea that this sort of quite a cultural prevalent idea that corruption is maybe something that can kind of wash to our shores. It can come from abroad, but very rarely does it originate in Iceland, which we know or should know now that isn't true. We are perfectly capable of originating corruption scandals ourselves. We have this country has been criticized by Greco, for instance, for its lack of action in anti-corruption. It was temporarily on a grey list for lack of action against money laundering, and it's no longer on that grey list. But that was very recent. And the OECD Working Group Against Bribery has also been very critical of Iceland. So there is a little bit of a rift, in my opinion, between the public's perception and the perception among politicians, or particularly perhaps those in majority, those in power. So Iceland does relatively well, but there is unfortunately naivety when it comes to certain industries that are just high risk industries, like the fishery industry.
The final question then to you, Thor, is Amnesty International Iceland. Where does your hope lie in this case? You spoke about the challenges in legislation as far as this matter is concerned, especially when it comes to extradition. And so there are no clear lines that it's not a straightforward matter as far as there are some technicalities there. But you as an organization seem to still demand that justice gets served, and you seem to have that hope that one day this matter will see the light of day. Where does your hope lie in this very tricky situation?
Yeah, so I speak for transparency. It's not Amnesty, but we're often confused. So just to make that clear, I mean, Iceland. There are laws here against bribery. There are laws against actions like this. So we do feel like we want to see every avenue explored. But the focus that our organization has here in Iceland is more on a sort of legislative and the framework on how we deal with it. So currently, one of the things that we worry about quite a lot is that when it comes to police and investigators, there is a severe lack of manpower. We want to see greater funding there. We do worry that there's no institution in Iceland that sees it as its major role to investigate political corruption. We've not had much activity when it comes to looking into political corruption. We want to see Iceland follow through and fix, according to the comments from Greco and OECD. And we also want to see the legal framework and the UNCAC made relevant. So those are our long-term goals of our organization. We focus a lot on whistleblower protection and sort of pragmatic anti-corruption methods. One of the things that we've highlighted recently, along with the Journalist Union in Iceland, is the rapid decline of numbers of journalists working in Iceland. We've seen a collapse from about 2,200 people down to 800 in 10 years, which is quite severe. There on the Fishrot case, clearly there are some laws lacking. We don't have a very strong law in Iceland when it comes to, for instance, trying to retrieve financial gains from those that maybe did not heavily participate, but clearly are benefactors of it. But short term, we want to see Iceland do everything it can to make sure that those responsible are called to stand for it. But also long term, Iceland needs to get away from this idea that corruption is essentially something foreign. Because one of the things that will happen to countries like ours that are this naive about it is that we might not always be the originator of corruption, although that is the case here, and we might not always be the end country where it happens. But countries like Iceland that tend to not take the responsibility serious or put a lot of priority in fighting anti-corruption can become intermediate. They can become countries that actually kind of keep it alive, and can be a stop for laundering or tax evasion, or a safe haven for people that actually would be in breach of law somewhere else. So that's one of the things that we worry about.
Indeed. Thor, thank you for your time, sir. And I think also thank you for your interest in a matter that has happened so thousands of miles away from where you are, and you seem to take keen interest and wanting to see justice being served here at home. So we thank you very much for your time and for your interest in the matter.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was tonight's show. Thank you for watching.